Lord. Truly a very happy and blessed Father's Day to all. I happen to think about growing up and the lessons that I learned from my own father. And there were many times trying something brand new was not easy. I think that is true for all of us. There's a sense of fear and trepidation. We don't want to mess it up. We want to do it right. We want to succeed the very first time. And sometimes we're so hesitant that we stop what we're doing. We don't complete the task. Jesus is confident in the Father. He is confident in why he was sent. He is confident in the mission that he was given. He has confidence in those he chose to follow him. The problem is they don't have that confidence yet in themselves. For in John's gospel, when we hear many times at a funeral, "You have faith in God," Jesus says, "have faith also in me." We truly have the blessing of hindsight, that we know Jesus. That great faith has been handed on from generation to generation, indeed to us, and we to those who will follow. But for those who were just called, they had their own agenda. Remember, they were fishermen, tax collectors, etc. They had in mind what they wanted out of this particular journey with Jesus, this Jesus of Nazareth, whom it took for almost forever, it seems, for them to understand that he is the Son of God. And really they don't fully understand that until after the resurrection, when God the Father loves his Son so much that even as he struggled in the Garden of Gethsemane, do I do this, do I go ahead, or do I not? Wrestling within that portion of him that is truly human, as we often wrestle within our own human nature. And yet the divine takes over, it wins out. It strengthens and enhances the faith that Jesus has in his Father, and he continues to Jerusalem. Not quite sure exactly what's going to happen, other than it's not going to be pleasant or pretty. In fact, it'll be very painful. Denial of those who have followed me for 3 years, being sold out by them, the ones I tried to pull faith out of. And even in the gospel today, do you not yet have faith? You've seen, you've heard, you'd walked with me. Are you still doubting? And it's not just to Thomas that he speaks. It's indeed to all of us that he speaks. We have truly been in our own storm over the last 15 months. First, it was like, oh, good, extra vacation during Easter break. Okay, we can deal with that. But then it continued and continued and continued. And fear set in. Faith was truly tested. And it's still being tested. And yet faith must win out. We have faith. We are here. We must understand that faith overcomes every fear. Jesus relieves the fear of potential death in the gospel today. Fishermen knew exactly what happened out on the sea. They heard the stories from their fathers, of people who went out fishing and didn't come back. They knew it could be perilous, and now they found themselves in the midst of another peril. And they were truly afraid. Jesus is confident. He's asleep in the back of the boat. And they wake him. They're terrified. And he brings them a sense of great faith and confidence. He calms the wind and the seas, that which is so tumultuous around them. He does the same for us, for those fears, anxieties, the things that are tumultuous within our hearts. If we ask, he brings that unique sense of faith and hopefulness to each of us. And he calms our fears, our doubts, and anxieties. He allows us to move forward in faith and not backwards in fear, or worse yet, being paralyzed and not moving at all. And so truly we are blessed to remember on this Father's Day the Father Almighty, who has loved us so much he sent his Son to once again reconcile all peoples to himself, to bring peace, healing, and hope, faith, encouragement, to allow each of us to see within ourselves what God sees all the time, to see the good potential that is there, it exists. And sometimes because we're afraid of failure or afraid of somebody's reaction, our faith just kind of sits in the background, waiting. And God, like the prodigal father, waits for us. He doesn't push us. He doesn't chide us. He simply gives us the example in his Son, Jesus Christ. Go forward in faith. Take the good that I have given you and make it better in the world. Multiply that good throughout the world. That is the hope of every father, deep down. And everyone who has taken on the role of father, deep down, it is the hope for their children. Succeed, do well. I see gifts in you that probably you don't see in yourself. Spend time in prayer, perhaps the words of the gospel. Quiet, be still. Take those as we begin our time of prayer. Selfishly guard it every day, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, even 30 seconds. To be quiet, to be still, and know that God is there. To listen, to understand, as God points out in our lives the gift and the grace that will be necessary for the building up of the world that day. The gift that we've been given is the gift we are called to share. The gift of faith is something we do not take lightly. Jesus points that out clearly to the disciples in the gospel today. We are reminded of that same grace and blessing. And so, my sisters and brothers, let us remember our fathers. Let us remember those who have taken on the role of father and have brought the best out in us in our lifetime. That legacy lives on in us. But the greatest legacy is the legacy of God the Father, who sent his Son that we might have the fullness of salvation.